The rain hammered against the glass windows of the upscale shopping plaza as Rebecca Crawford stood beneath the covered walkway, watching a scene unfold that would forever alter the trajectory of her carefully controlled life. A man in worn jeans and a faded jacket knelt on the wet pavement, pulling his young son close as the boy sobbed into his shoulder. The father's voice carried softly through the storm, gentle reassurances that everything would be okay, that they would figure it out together. Rebecca found herself transfixed, unable to look away from the raw tenderness of the moment, so different from the calculated interactions that filled her days. She had come to the plaza to meet with potential investors for her latest venture, another acquisition that would add millions to her already substantial fortune. At 32, Rebecca had built an empire from the ground up, transforming a small tech startup into Crawford Industries, a conglomerate that touched everything from software development to real estate. Her success was legendary, her ruthlessness in business equally so. But standing there in her designer suit and $1,000 heels, watching this father comfort his child with nothing but love and words, she felt something stir inside her that no board meeting had ever awakened. The boy could not have been more than 7 years old, his small frame shaking with the force of his tears. His sneakers were scuffed and too small, his jacket patched at the elbows. The father, probably in his early 30s, had kind eyes despite the exhaustion etched into his face. His hands were calloused, the hands of someone who worked with them daily, and his embrace was fierce and protective. Rebecca made a decision that surprised even herself. She walked toward them, her heels clicking against the wet concrete. The man looked up as her shadow fell across them, his body instinctively shifting to place himself between her and his son. His eyes were a striking gray-green, wary but defiant. "I am sorry to intrude," Rebecca said softly, crouching down despite the damage it would do to her expensive skirt. "Is everything all right?" The man studied her for a long moment, clearly trying to decide if she was a threat or genuine in her concern. His son peeked out from behind his shoulder, tears still streaming down his round cheeks. "We are managing, thank you," the man said, his voice deep and steady despite the obvious strain. "Just a rough moment." Rebecca looked at the boy, who had the same gray-green eyes as his father. "What is your name, sweetheart?" the boy sniffled, looking to his father for permission. When the man nodded, the child whispered, "Tommy?" "Hi, Tommy, I am Rebecca." She offered him a gentle smile. "I could not help but notice you were upset. Want to tell me what is wrong?" Tommy's lower lip trembled. "I broke my dad's phone, the work one. And now he cannot get his calls and he might lose his job because of me." The pieces fell into place. Rebecca glanced at the man, who had the decency to look embarrassed. "It was an accident," the father said firmly. "And Tommy, I told you, it is not your fault. These things happen." "But you said you could not afford a new one right now," Tommy sobbed. "And I heard you on the old phone saying you might miss the job if they could not reach you." Rebecca felt her heart constrict in a way that was entirely foreign to her. She had grown up wealthy, had never known the fear of a missed opportunity due to something as simple as a broken phone. But she recognized the look in the father's eyes, the desperate calculation of someone trying to figure out how to solve an impossible problem. "What is your name?" Rebecca asked the man. Marcus Vance." He extended his hand, calloused and strong, and Rebecca took it. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through her. "Marcus, I own a company. We go through phones constantly, upgrading our systems. I have probably 20 perfectly good phones sitting in storage right now, going to waste." She saw him start to shake his head and held up a hand. "Please, let me help. Consider it a favor for a fellow human being." "I cannot accept charity," Marcus said, his jaw setting in a stubborn line that Rebecca found herself admiring. "It is not charity. It is resource management. Those phones are literally sitting in boxes, depreciating in value. You would actually be doing me a favor by putting one to use." She could see him wavering. Plus, I could use someone with obvious integrity. Are you looking for work? Marcus blinked, clearly caught off guard. I do carpentry, construction, renovation work. Whatever I can get, honestly. Rebecca's mind raced. She had just purchased a historic building downtown that she planned to convert into a mixed-use space, retail on the bottom, apartments above. The contractor she had hired had proven incompetent, and she had been considering firing him. I am renovating a building on 5th and Market. My current contractor is not working out. Would you be interested in taking a look at the project? Marcus stood slowly, helping Tommy to his feet. The boy clung to his father's hand, watching Rebecca with wide, curious eyes. I appreciate the offer, I really do. But I do not take handouts, and I do not want you to feel obligated because you saw us having a bad moment. Rebecca stood as well, meeting his eyes directly. She was used to men being intimidated by her, either by her wealth or her position. Marcus showed neither fear nor resentment, just honest wariness. Mr. Vance, I did not build a multimillion-dollar company by making business decisions based on emotions. If you are not qualified, I would not offer you the job. But something tells me you are exactly the kind of person I need working on this project. She pulled a business card from her purse. Come by tomorrow morning. Look at the building. Tell me what you think needs to be done. If your assessment matches mine, we will talk terms. If not, no hard feelings. Marcus took the card, studying it carefully. Crawford Industries. You are that Rebecca Crawford, guilty as charged. Tommy tugged on his father's jacket. Dad, what is happening? Marcus knelt down again, eye level with his son. Miss Rebecca is offering Dad a chance to look at a job. What do you think, buddy? Should I go? The boy looked at Rebecca, then back to his father. She seems nice, Dad, and you have been looking for steady work. Out of the mouths of babes, Rebecca thought, charmed by the boy's simple wisdom. All right, Marcus said, standing again. I will be there at 8 tomorrow morning, but if I do not think I can do the job right, I will tell you. I would not expect anything less. Rebecca smiled. Now about that phone, my office is 3 blocks from here. Let me grab one for you, along with a SIM card. You can activate it tonight. Marcus started to protest, but Rebecca cut him off. Consider it an advance on the job. If tomorrow does not work out, you can return it. Deal? After a long moment, Marcus nodded. Deal. They walked together through the rain, Rebecca offering to drive them, but Marcus insisting they were fine. She compromised by sharing her umbrella. Tommy squeezed between them as they navigated the wet streets. The boy chattered now that the crisis had passed, telling Rebecca about his school and his friends, and how his dad was teaching him to build a treehouse in their backyard. We do not really have a backyard, Marcus admitted, a touch of embarrassment in his voice. It is more of a small patch of dirt behind our apartment building, but we are making it work. It sounds wonderful, Rebecca said, and meant it. When was the last time she had undertaken a project purely for joy, for the sake of creating something with her own hands? At her office building, the doorman nodded respectfully as they entered. Rebecca led them to the elevator, aware of the curious looks from her employees as she arrived with a man in work clothes and a child. Let them wonder, she thought. She had spent too long caring about appearances. Her office took up the entire top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. Tommy pressed his face to the glass, marveling at how small the cars looked from up here. You can see everything, the boy breathed. Marcus stood beside his son, a protective hand on his shoulder, and Rebecca saw him take in her office with careful assessment. The expensive furniture, the original artwork, the obvious trappings of wealth. She wondered what he thought if he judged her for it. Give me just a moment, she said, disappearing into an adjacent storage room. She returned with a sealed smartphone and a SIM card. This should work with any carrier. It is last year's model, but it is fully functional. Marcus took the phone carefully, as if it might break. I will pay you back. Let us see how tomorrow goes first. Rebecca pulled out her own phone. What is your number? I will text you the building address and door code. He rattled off his number, and she sent the information. His old phone, she noticed, had a cracked screen and was held together with electrical tape. That he had managed to make do with so little spoke to his resourcefulness. "Thank you," Tommy said suddenly, looking up at Rebecca with earnest eyes, "for helping my dad." Rebecca felt her throat tighten. "You are very welcome, Tommy." As they prepared to leave, Tommy suddenly hugged her leg, a spontaneous gesture of childish affection. Rebecca froze, unused to such unguarded displays. Then, slowly, she placed a hand on the boy's head, feeling the softness of his hair. Marcus gently pulled his son back. "Sorry, he is affectionate." "No, it is fine." Rebecca surprised herself by meaning it. It was sweet. In the elevator, as the numbers descended, Rebecca found herself not wanting them to leave. It was absurd. She had known these two people for less than an hour. And yet, there was something about them, about Marcus's quiet strength and Tommy's innocent joy, that made her feel more grounded than she had in years. 8 tomorrow morning, she reminded Marcus as they reached the lobby. "We will be there," Marcus promised. Then, after a hesitation, "Thank you, Rebecca. Really, this means more than you know." She watched them leave, Tommy's small hand in his father's larger one, and felt an unfamiliar ache in her chest. She had spent so long building walls, protecting herself, that she had forgotten what it felt like to connect with people on a genuine level. That night, in her penthouse apartment with its minimalist decor and city views, Rebecca found herself unable to stop thinking about Marcus and Tommy. She researched Marcus online, finding few traces. No social media presence, no criminal record, just a few mentions in local community forums where people recommended him for various odd jobs. Everyone praised his work ethic and honesty. She thought about the way he had comforted his son, the gentleness in his voice despite whatever stress he must have been feeling. She thought about how he had wanted to refuse her help, too proud to accept what he saw as charity. There was something deeply appealing about his integrity, his determination to make it on his own terms. Rebecca had dated, of course, but her relationships had always been transactional in some way. Men who wanted her money, her connections, her status. Or men intimidated by her success, who felt threatened by her power. She had learned to keep her heart locked away, to view relationships as another form of negotiation, but Marcus had looked at her as simply another person. Not a billionaire, not a powerful CEO, just Rebecca. And that had been more refreshing than anything she had experienced in years. The next morning, she arrived at the building on 5th and Market at 7:30, wanting to be there before Marcus. The structure was a beautiful old brownstone from the early 1900s, with good bones but decades of neglect. Her current contractor had started work 2 weeks ago and had already managed to damage some of the original woodwork and crack several historic tiles. At precisely 8 o'clock, Marcus arrived. He wore clean work clothes, his boots scuffed but well-maintained. Tommy was not with him, and Rebecca felt a surprising pang of disappointment. "Good morning," Marcus said, meeting her at the entrance. "Tommy is at school." "I did not think a construction site was the best place for him." "Probably wise," Rebecca agreed, though she found herself missing the boy's bright presence. She handed Marcus a hard hat and led him through the building, explaining her vision. She wanted to preserve as much of the original character as possible while modernizing the infrastructure and making it functional for contemporary use. Marcus listened intently, occasionally stopping to examine a wall or test a floorboard. "Your contractor cracked this baseboard," Marcus observed, running his hand along an ornate wooden detail. "These are original, probably oak. They could be repaired, but it will take someone who knows what they are doing." "Can you do it?" Marcus studied the wood for a long moment. "Yes." "I worked with a master carpenter for 5 years before he retired. He taught me to respect the old craftsmanship, how to match techniques." They continued through the building, and with each room, Rebecca became more impressed. Marcus did not just see the problems, he saw solutions. He pointed out where her current contractor had taken shortcuts, where moisture damage needed to be addressed before cosmetic work could begin, where original features were hidden under layers of cheap renovation. "This place could be incredible," Marcus said as they reached the top floor. "But it is going to take time and someone who cares about doing it right, not just doing it fast." Rebecca leaned against the windowsill, studying him. "If I offered you the job, could you start immediately?" Marcus met her gaze. "I need to know what you are really offering." "A one-time project or steady work?" "The project will take at least 6 months, probably longer. And I have 3 other properties I am looking at acquiring. If you do good work, there would be more jobs after this one." She could see the wheels turning in his mind, the careful consideration. "What about my son? School gets out at 3. I need to be able to pick him up." Rebecca had not considered this, but she found herself immediately wanting to accommodate. "We can work around that. Start early if you need to, or bring him here after school if you need extra time. This is a big building, and as long as he stays safe and out of the work areas, I have no problem with it." Marcus looked surprised. Most employers would not be that flexible. "I am not most employers." Rebecca pulled out a contract she had prepared, outlining payment terms, timeline expectations, and responsibilities. She had put it together late last night, unable to sleep. "Look this over. If the terms are acceptable, we can start immediately." Marcus read through the contract carefully, his expression growing more shocked with each page. "Rebecca, this is more than generous. The hourly rate alone is twice what I usually make. It is the going rate for skilled renovation work in this city. My previous contractor was charging me more and delivering less." She paused. "I believe in paying people what they are worth, and something tells me you are worth every penny." He looked up at her, and for a moment, the air between them felt charged with something unspoken. Then Marcus cleared his throat and extended his hand. "You have got yourself a contractor." They shook on it, and Rebecca felt that same jolt of electricity from the day before. She pulled her hand back quickly, professional. "I need to fire the current contractor first. Can you come back tomorrow to start? I will be here at 7. Over the following weeks, Rebecca found herself spending more time at the renovation site than at her main office. She told herself it was because she wanted to oversee the project personally, but she knew the truth. She was drawn to Marcus, to watching him work with focused intensity, to listening to him explain the intricacies of historic preservation. Tommy started coming to the site after school, doing his homework in what would eventually be the lobby, carefully staying out of the work areas as his father had instructed. Rebecca found herself looking forward to his arrival each day, to his enthusiastic recounting of his school day and his endless questions about her work. "Do you like being a billionaire?" Tommy asked her one afternoon, his math homework spread out before him. Rebecca laughed at the directness of the question. "I like being able to help people and create things. The money is just a tool to do that. My dad says money is important, but it is not the most important thing." "Your dad is right." Tommy looked at her seriously. "Do you have kids?" The question hit her harder than she expected. "No, I do not." "Why not? You would be a good mom." Rebecca felt her eyes sting unexpectedly. "That is very kind of you to say, Tommy." Marcus appeared then, dusty from work. "Tommy, are you bothering Rebecca?" "No, he is fine," Rebecca said quickly. "We were just talking." Marcus ruffled his son's hair. "Go wash up, buddy. We will head home soon." After Tommy scampered off, Marcus turned to Rebecca with an apologetic expression. "Sorry if he was asking personal questions." "He does not have much of a filter." "Really, it is fine. He is a wonderful kid, Marcus. You should be proud." "I am." Marcus's expression softened. "He is everything to me. After his mom left, it was just us. I promised myself I would be enough for him, that he would not feel like he was missing anything." Rebecca had wondered about Tommy's mother but had not wanted to pry. "If you do not mind me asking, what happened?" Marcus sighed, leaning against a workbench. "Sarah and I were young when we got together. Too young, probably. When Tommy was born, she tried to make it work, but she never really wanted to be a mother. When Tommy was 3, she said she felt trapped, that this was not the life she wanted. She left and moved across the country. We have not heard from her in years. That must have been incredibly difficult. The hardest part was watching Tommy ask for his mom and not being able to explain why she did not want to be there. Marcus's jaw tightened. But we adapted. We became a team, him and me against the world. Rebecca felt a deep respect for Marcus grow even stronger. He had taken his circumstances and made the best of them, prioritizing his son above everything else. "He is lucky to have you," she said softly. Marcus looked at her and something passed between them, a moment of understanding and connection. "Some days I wonder if I am enough, if I am failing him by not being able to give him more. You are giving him exactly what he needs: love, stability, attention. Those things matter more than money ever could," says the billionaire. Marcus teased gently. Rebecca smiled. "Especially," says the billionaire, "I grew up with everything money could buy and parents who were too busy to spend time with me. I would have traded it all for what you and Tommy have." The weeks turned into months, and the building slowly transformed under Marcus's skilled hands. But more than the building was changing. Rebecca found herself sharing lunches with Marcus and Tommy, found herself laughing more than she had in years, found herself thinking about them when she should have been thinking about quarterly reports and acquisition targets. Marcus, for his part, seemed equally affected. She caught him watching her sometimes with an expression she could not quite read. He started staying later, even after Tommy had finished his homework, finding excuses to discuss project details or show her some architectural element he had uncovered. They were dancing around something neither of them wanted to name, both aware of the gulf between their worlds. One evening, as October turned to November, Rebecca was reviewing plans in what would become the ground floor cafe when Marcus appeared with 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you could use this," he said, handing her one. "You are a lifesaver." She took a sip, savoring the warmth. "Where is Tommy?" "Sleepover at his friend Jake's house. First time he has done that in a while." They fell into comfortable silence, reviewing the plans together. Rebecca was intensely aware of Marcus's proximity, the heat of his body next to hers, the faint scent of sawdust and soap. "Rebecca," Marcus said suddenly, his voice lower than usual, "can I ask you something personal?" Her heart accelerated. "Of course." "Why are you not married? Or in a relationship? Someone like you, I cannot imagine you are short on options." Rebecca set down her coffee carefully. "I could ask you the same thing. I asked first." There was a hint of humor in his tone. She considered her answer carefully. "I spent so long building my career, proving myself in a male-dominated industry, that relationships always seemed like a distraction. And the men I met either wanted something from me or were intimidated by what I had accomplished. It got easier to just focus on work." "Sounds lonely." "It was," she admitted. "Is present tense." Marcus turned to face her fully. "I have been alone since Sarah left, not just single but alone. I did not want to bring someone into Tommy's life unless I was sure they would stay. He has been abandoned once. I could not let it happen again." "That makes sense. But lately, I have been thinking maybe it is possible to find someone who would not see Tommy as an obstacle, but as part of the package." He paused. "Someone who already cares about him." Rebecca's breath caught. "Marcus, I know this is complicated. I know we come from different worlds. But Rebecca, these past few months have been the happiest I have been in years. Not just because of the steady work, though that has been life-changing, but because of you. The way you talk to Tommy, the way you light up when you explain your vision for a project, the way you have never once made me feel less than because I do not have a college degree or wear fancy suits." "You could never be less than," Rebecca said, her voice barely a whisper. "Marcus, you are one of the most impressive people I have ever met. Your integrity, your dedication to your son, the way you approach your work with such care and skill." "Then why do we keep dancing around this?" Marcus asked, stepping closer. "I see the way you look at me. I feel something here, and I think you do too." Rebecca's carefully constructed walls were crumbling. "I am terrified," she admitted. I do not know how to do this. Real relationships, real emotions. What if I mess it up? What if you do not? Marcus reached up, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. What if we figure it out together? When he kissed her, soft and questioning, Rebecca felt like she was falling and flying at the same time. She responded without thinking, all the weeks of suppressed attraction flowing into that single point of contact. His hands came up to frame her face, tender and sure, and she wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. I have been wanting to do that for weeks. Me too, Rebecca admitted. So what now? Marcus asked. Because I need you to know I do not do casual. If we do this, I need to know you are serious. For Tommy's sake and mine. Rebecca pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I do not want casual either. I want real. I want you, both of you, if you will have me. Marcus kissed her again, deeper this time, and Rebecca felt years of loneliness and isolation melt away. They took it slow for Tommy's sake. Neither wanted to confuse or upset him. They started with small things, family dinners together, weekend outings to parks and museums. Rebecca discovered the joy of simple pleasures, flying kites, baking cookies, reading bedtime stories. Tommy, perceptive as ever, seemed delighted by the development. Are you Dad's girlfriend? He asked Rebecca one Sunday afternoon as they worked on a puzzle together. Rebecca glanced at Marcus, who was watching from the kitchen doorway with a soft smile. Would that be okay with you? Tommy considered this seriously. Will you leave like Mom did? The question stabbed at Rebecca's heart. She knelt down to be at eye level with the boy. Tommy, I cannot promise that life will not throw challenges at us. But I can promise that if I commit to being part of your life, I will not abandon you. You are too important to me. Do you love my dad? Rebecca looked over at Marcus, whose eyes were bright with emotion. She had been afraid to say it out loud, afraid that naming it would somehow make it fragile. But looking at this man who had shown her what real strength looked like, who had taught her to value things that money could not buy, she knew the truth. Yes, Tommy, I do. Dad loves you too, Tommy said matter-of-factly. He told me. Marcus crossed the room, pulling both Tommy and Rebecca into a hug. Way to keep a secret, buddy. You said honesty is important, Tommy protested. He has got you there, Rebecca laughed, her arms around both of them. The holidays approached, and Rebecca found herself experiencing them in entirely new ways. She had always treated Christmas as another day, maybe exchanging expensive but impersonal gifts with business associates. But Tommy's excitement was contagious. Together, the three of them picked out a tree, strung popcorn garlands, and baked cookies in shapes of snowmen and stars. Marcus's apartment was small, but Rebecca loved it more than her sterile penthouse. It was filled with warmth and laughter, with evidence of life actually being lived. Tommy's drawings covered the refrigerator, books were stacked on every surface, and mismatched furniture showed the wear of years of use. I know it is not much, Marcus said, finding her studying a family photo of him and Tommy at the beach. It is perfect, Rebecca said, meaning it. It is a home. On Christmas Eve, Rebecca gave Tommy his present, a complete set of woodworking tools sized for children, along with a promise that Marcus would teach him to use them safely. Now I can help Dad with real projects, Tommy exclaimed, his eyes shining. For Marcus, she had something different, the deed to a house. Not a mansion, not something ostentatious, but a comfortable 3-bedroom with a real backyard and a garage Marcus could use as a workshop. Marcus stared at the papers, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Rebecca worried she had overstepped. I cannot accept this, he finally said. Rebecca's heart sank. Marcus, please, let me explain. This is too much, Rebecca. I told you I do not want your money. It is not about the money, Rebecca said urgently. The apartment is too small for the three of us. And I thought maybe if you had a space that was yours, a workshop where you could take on additional projects, build that business you have always talked about. It is an investment in our future. In us. The three of us, Marcus repeated. Rebecca realized what she had said. I mean, if you want. If it is too soon, I understand. But Marcus, I do not want to play house. I want the real thing. I want to fall asleep next to you and wake up to Tommy's laughter. I want family dinners and homework help and all the beautiful, mundane details of a life together. Tommy tugged on his father's sleeve. Dad, can we please keep the house? It has a yard big enough for the treehouse. Marcus looked between his son and Rebecca, his eyes suspiciously bright. You really want this? The chaos and the noise and the fact that I will never be able to keep you in the lifestyle you are accustomed to. I do not want the lifestyle I am accustomed to, Rebecca said fiercely. I want this. I want you, both of you, completely and forever. Marcus pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that made Tommy giggle and cover his eyes. Then yes, to all of it. The house, the future, everything. They moved into the house in January, and Rebecca discovered that merging lives was both harder and more rewarding than she had imagined. She had to learn to share space, to compromise, to put others' needs before her own desires. But she also learned the profound satisfaction of being part of something bigger than herself. Marcus launched his renovation business, Vance Restoration, specializing in historic preservation. Rebecca helped with the business plan and initial funding, but the success was all his. His reputation for quality work and integrity spread, and soon he had more jobs than he could handle alone. Tommy thrived with the stability and space. His grades improved, he made new friends in the neighborhood, and he started calling Rebecca Mom without anyone prompting him. The first time it happened, Rebecca had to excuse herself to cry happy tears in the bathroom, in March, as they were finishing up the building on 5th and Market. Marcus proposed. Not with a flashy display or expensive ring, but with a simple band he had crafted himself from reclaimed wood and inlaid silver, kneeling in the building where they had first really worked together. Rebecca Crawford, you walked into my life when I needed it most and showed me that it was possible to be strong enough to accept help, to be vulnerable enough to love. You have given me and Tommy a stability I never dreamed possible, but more than that, you have given us yourself. Will you marry me? Rebecca pulled him to his feet, tears streaming down her face. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They married in June in a small ceremony in their backyard, the treehouse Marcus and Tommy had built serving as the backdrop. Rebecca wore a simple white dress, Marcus a suit he actually felt comfortable in, and Tommy served as the best man with utmost seriousness. Rebecca's business associates were confused by her choice of venue and groom. How could a billionaire marry a carpenter in a backyard ceremony? But Rebecca did not care. She had spent too long seeking their approval, molding herself to fit their expectations. This wedding was about celebrating the love she had found, the family she had chosen. As they exchanged vows, promising to love and honor each other through whatever challenges life brought, Rebecca felt a peace she had never known. She had built an empire, but this was her greatest achievement. The months flowed into years, and their life together developed a comfortable rhythm. Rebecca gradually stepped back from the day-to-day operations of Crawford Industries, appointing a CEO she trusted to handle most decisions while she focused on strategic direction and the parts of the business she truly loved. It gave her more time with her family, which she guarded fiercely. Tommy grew from a sweet 7-year-old into a thoughtful teenager who had inherited his father's work ethic and his stepmother's strategic mind. He talked about studying architecture, about combining design vision with hands-on building knowledge. Rebecca and Marcus could not have been prouder. On their 5th anniversary, Rebecca surprised Marcus with news she had been waiting to share. They were in the backyard, Tommy away at a friend's house, the summer evening warm and perfect. I have been thinking, Rebecca said, nestled against Marcus's side on the porch swing he had built. Tommy is getting older, more independent, and I know we have been so focused on giving him stability. But, Marcus prompted, sensing there was more, but I want another child, maybe 2. I want to experience pregnancy, midnight feedings, all the chaos of a baby. With you." She looked up at him nervously. "I know we never really discussed expanding our family." Marcus's face broke into the widest smile she had ever seen. "Rebecca, I would love nothing more than to have a baby with you. I have been afraid to bring it up, worried you might think our family was complete as it is." "Our family is perfect as it is," Rebecca clarified, "but it could be even better with another person to love." They told Tommy that night when he came home, anxious about how the teenager would react to the prospect of a sibling after so many years as an only child. "Seriously? That is awesome," Tommy exclaimed, surprising them both with his enthusiasm. "I have always wanted to be a big brother. And I am old enough now to actually help, change diapers and stuff." 9 months later, Rebecca gave birth to a daughter they named Emma. Holding her tiny, perfect baby in her arms, with Marcus beside her and Tommy peering over his shoulder to see his sister, Rebecca felt overwhelmed by gratitude. She had spent so long chasing success, building wealth, proving her worth. But this was what real wealth looked like. 2 years after Emma came Michael, a son with his father's gray-green eyes and Rebecca's determined spirit. Their house was filled with the beautiful chaos of family life. Toys scattered across the floor, crayon drawings on the walls, the sounds of laughter and occasional tears. Marcus's business flourished, and he hired employees, building a team as dedicated to quality work as he was. Rebecca partnered with several nonprofits, using her resources to provide job training and support for single parents struggling to make ends meet, never forgetting that moment in the rain when she had seen Marcus at his lowest. Tommy graduated high school with honors and chose to attend the state university, studying architecture as he had planned. He came home every weekend, unwilling to miss too much time with his younger siblings. Marcus said one night as they watched their children sleep, Emma and Michael tucked into their beds, their breathing soft and even. "I sometimes think about that day in the rain when you walked up to us. What if you had not? What if you had just kept walking?" "I could not," Rebecca said simply. "Something pulled me toward you, toward this. Fate, love," she corrected. "I just did not know it yet." Marcus kissed her temple. "Best decision you ever made, walking over to a crying kid and his desperate father." "Best decision I ever made was saying yes to everything that came after." As they stood in the doorway of their children's rooms, Rebecca reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had thought success was measured in dollars and deals, in power and prestige, but she had been wrong. Real success was measured in moments like these. The weight of her daughter's hand in hers, the sound of her son's laugh, the feeling of her husband's arms around her at the end of a long day, the knowledge that she was building something that would last long after quarterly reports were forgotten. She still ran Crawford Industries, still closed major deals and made strategic decisions. But now work was just one part of her life, not the entirety of it. She left the office at 5 to make it home for family dinner. She took weekends off to attend Emma's dance recitals and Michael's soccer games. She had learned to balance ambition with presence, achievement with contentment. Marcus had been right that day at the construction site. She could never have given him the lifestyle she had been accustomed to. But he had given her something far more valuable: a life worth living, a family worth cherishing, a love worth everything she had ever achieved. Years continued to pass, each one bringing new joys and challenges. When Emma was 10 and Michael was 8, they faced their first real crisis as a family. Marcus's father fell ill, and Marcus had to travel back to his hometown to help care for him. It meant weeks away from the family, difficult decisions about end-of-life care, and the grief of watching a parent fade. Rebecca held everything together at home while Marcus dealt with his father's illness. She ran the household, managed both their businesses remotely, and made sure the children understood what was happening in age-appropriate ways. When Marcus called late at night, his voice breaking with exhaustion and sorrow, she was his anchor, reminding him that he was not alone, that they would get through this together. Marcus's father passed in the spring, and the funeral brought together pieces of Marcus's past that Rebecca had only heard about in stories. She met his childhood friends, his extended family, saw the small town where he had learned carpentry from his father. She understood him better after that trip, understood the values that had shaped him, the love of craftsmanship passed down through generations. "Thank you for being there," Marcus said as they drove home, the children asleep in the back seat. "I could not have done this without you." "That is what marriage means," Rebecca said, taking his hand. "We show up for each other, especially when things are hard." That summer, Tommy graduated from university and started his own architectural firm, partnering with one of his father's restoration clients. The first project he designed was a community center in an underserved neighborhood, combining beautiful design with practical functionality. Rebecca and Marcus attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony, bursting with pride. "He learned from the best," Rebecca whispered to Marcus as Tommy gave a speech about the importance of creating spaces that served communities. "He learned from both of us," Marcus corrected. "Your vision, my hands-on approach, he is the perfect combination." As Emma entered her teenage years, she developed a passion for business that reminded Rebecca of her younger self. But unlike Rebecca, Emma also had her father's empathy and groundedness. She talked about using business as a force for good, about building companies that prioritized people over profits. "Can I intern at Crawford Industries this summer?" Emma asked over dinner one night. Rebecca exchanged a glance with Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. "Absolutely. But you start at the bottom, just like any other intern, no special treatment." "I would not want it any other way," Emma said, her eyes shining with determination. Michael, meanwhile, showed talents that surprised them all. He was artistic and introspective, spending hours drawing and painting. Marcus built him a studio in the garage, and Michael filled it with canvases that showed remarkable depth for his age. "Do you ever worry that our kids have too much?" Marcus asked Rebecca one evening as they watched Michael paint. "That we have made things too easy for them?" Rebecca considered the question. "I think about it sometimes, but then I look at how hard they work, how kind they are, how they understand that privilege comes with responsibility. We have given them advantages, yes, but we have also taught them values. That is what matters." On their 10th anniversary, Rebecca and Marcus renewed their vows in the same backyard where they had married, this time with their 3 children as witnesses. The treehouse had been expanded over the years, and Emma and Michael had decorated it with flowers and fairy lights for the occasion. "10 years ago, I promised to love you through whatever challenges life brought," Rebecca said, holding Marcus's hands as they stood under the oak tree. "I have kept that promise through joy and sorrow, through triumph and difficulty. And I would make the same promise again for 10 more years, for 100 more years, for whatever time we are given." Marcus's vows were equally heartfelt. "You taught me that accepting love is not a weakness, that letting someone in does not diminish your strength. You have been my partner in every sense of the word, and I am a better man, a better father, because of you." After the ceremony, as they celebrated with close friends and family, Rebecca found herself thinking back to that rainy day 14 years ago. She had been so lost then, so convinced that her worth was tied to her net worth, that success meant isolation. Finding Marcus and Tommy had not just changed her life, it had saved it. They had shown her that real wealth was not measured in zeros in a bank account, but in the fullness of a life well lived, a heart well loved. "Happy," Marcus murmured, pulling her close as their friends and family mingled around them. Rebecca looked at their children laughing together, at the home they had built, at the life they had created. "Happier than I ever imagined possible." As the sun set on their anniversary celebration, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Rebecca Vance, no longer just Crawford, but Vance, a name she wore with pride, felt complete. She had built an empire, yes, but more importantly, she had built a family. And that, she knew, was the greatest accomplishment of all. Years continued to unfold, bringing all the messy, beautiful complexity of life. There were arguments and reconciliations, failures and triumphs, moments of doubt and moments of absolute certainty. Through it all, Rebecca and Marcus faced everything as they had from the beginning. Together, with love as their foundation and family as their purpose. When Rebecca finally stepped down as CEO of Crawford Industries at 60, she did not feel like she was losing anything. Instead, she felt free to pursue new passions. Mentoring young entrepreneurs, writing a book about finding balance between ambition and humanity, spending long afternoons in the backyard with Marcus, watching their grandchildren play. Yes, grandchildren. Tommy had married a wonderful woman named Sarah, a name that had given Marcus pause at first, but the new Sarah was nothing like the old one. She was warm and committed and perfect for Tommy. They had twin boys who inherited the family's love of building things, constantly constructing elaborate structures out of blocks and cardboard. Emma had graduated from business school and was running a social enterprise that provided job training and placement services for single parents. Rebecca could not have been prouder. Michael had become a successful artist, his work featured in galleries across the country, and he used his platform to advocate for arts education in schools. The house that Rebecca had bought all those years ago had become the center of a sprawling family. They had added on over the years, creating space for everyone to gather. Sunday dinners were loud and chaotic, with multiple generations crowding around the table Marcus had built with his own hands. Did you ever imagine this? Marcus asked Rebecca one Sunday evening, after everyone had left and they were cleaning up together, a ritual they still insisted on doing themselves. Not in my wildest dreams, Rebecca admitted. When I was building my career, I thought I had to choose between success and family. You taught me I could have both, just not in the way I had imagined. Marcus dried the last dish and set it carefully in the cabinet. You know what I am grateful for, that Tommy cried that day, that his tears brought you to us. Rebecca laughed. I am grateful for that too. Though I am sure Tommy would be embarrassed to know his childhood meltdown led to all this. He knows how lucky we are. All our kids do. As they settled onto the porch swing, watching fireflies dance in the gathering dusk, Rebecca took Marcus's hand. His fingers were still calloused from work, still strong despite the years. Her own hands showed age too, but they were hands that had held babies and signed billion-dollar contracts, hands that had built a life she was proud of. I love you, she said simply, the words as true as the first time she had said them. I love you too, Marcus replied, kissing her softly. Thank you for walking over to us that day. Thank you for letting me in. They sat together in comfortable silence, two people from different worlds who had built a new world together, one filled with love and laughter and the beautiful, ordinary magic of a life shared. The empire Rebecca had built still stood, still thrived, but it was nothing compared to the empire she and Marcus had created together. A family bound by choice and commitment, by love given freely and received with gratitude. As darkness fell and the stars emerged overhead, Rebecca thought about all the moments that had led her here. The long hours in boardrooms, the difficult decisions, the loneliness of success achieved in isolation. And then that rainy day when she had seen a father comforting his son and recognized something she had been missing. Connection, purpose, love. She had walked over with an offer of help, not knowing she was the one who needed saving. But that was the beautiful mystery of love. You never knew when it would find you or how it would transform you. You just had to be brave enough to take that first step, to cross the distance between stranger and friend, between loneliness and belonging. Rebecca had taken that step 14 years ago, walking across wet pavement toward a crying child and his struggling father. In doing so, she had walked toward her future, toward the life she was always meant to live, toward the love that would define her more than any business deal or bank balance ever could, and she had never looked back. The renovation building on 5th and Market still stood, now a thriving mixed-use space that had revitalized the entire neighborhood. A plaque near the entrance read, "Restored with love by Vance Restoration." Every time Rebecca walked past it, she smiled, remembering the early days when she and Marcus had been dancing around their feelings, too afraid to name what was growing between them. Life had a funny way of working out, she thought. You could plan and strategize and build empires, but the most important moments often came when you least expected them, when you were willing to step outside your carefully constructed world and see someone else's pain, someone else's struggle, someone else's humanity. She had been that billionaire woman who watched a poor dad comfort his crying son. She had walked over with an offer. And in return, she had received everything she had ever truly wanted. A partner who saw her for who she really was, children who filled her life with joy and purpose, a family that proved love was the greatest wealth of all. As Marcus pulled her closer on the swing, his arm around her shoulders, Rebecca closed her eyes and breathed in the moment. The scent of honeysuckle on the night air, the sound of crickets singing, the feeling of being exactly where she belonged. This was success, she thought. This was wealth. This was everything, and it all started with a simple act of compassion, a willingness to help, and the courage to love when love found her. The rest, as they say, was history. Their history. A love story for the ages, built not on fairy tale perfection, but on real struggles overcome together, on choosing each other every single day, on building a life that mattered. Rebecca Vance smiled and leaned into her husband's embrace, grateful beyond words for the beautiful life they had created, and excited for all the moments still to come.